Wake up.
Plus they're low talkers. in
Oh,
that
yeah.
group.
Yeah.
The few that talk about it.
All right, everybody, if we could stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Andy, I think I'm gonna turn this off because I'm hearing feedback.
Just put it, don't turn it off. You need it on. I'll have to adjust the microphone if there's feedback.
I just didn't know if the two were too
Put it
close.
closer to
Here?
the middle of the table, down. Yeah. All right, we only had two regular checks, Sophie Fazell, 1309, and Richard Murphy, 2797.
Which way? Oh, this way?
Move everything which way, Andy?
Move the equipment down here.
Oh, oh, right here?
Wait, what do the wires are? Is the wire coming out the ceiling?
Just a speaker wire. All right.
I think I'm just gonna know.
Ready?
Yep.
Jason Gagnon, 164.86, Andrew Gray, 672.57, Joyce Gallant, 835.77, Joseph Berg, $1,110.43, John Bryant, 819.31, Barry Levine is 212.40, Nathan Richards is 827.71, Katrina Tennant is 795.20, Jack Tremblay is 712.16, Trevor Rippey is 745.22, Caden Blazek Ahern 755.50, Jeff Collins is 851.46, Wayne Robinson is 1,056.84, Keith Colgan is 410.18, Kip Kaiser is 834.31, Thomas S. is 161.61, Katie Copel is 183.81, Kiki Donis Wall 729.65, Shayla Gherkin is 46.45, Mary Lance Hall is 220.08, Janice Weirs is 838.28, Marley Beltry is 92.35, Joyce Keeble is 588.26, Jillian Benedicts is 574.97, Karen Cummings 1,326.18, Heather Harris is 359.37, Tamara Peak is 797.98, Daphne Ross is 843.96, Kendra Brackett 628.03, Justin Doty is 899.02, Robert Gagnon is 615.87, Matt Kelly is 885.72, Robert McCollum is 198.38, James Saltzman is 1,015.58, Christopher Spitaleri is 939.41, Josh Turner is 195.44, John Ventura is 1,499.50, Jeremy Worcester is 149.89, Jared Wright Ward is $1,114.09.
For a total of $27,707.80. Combined total of $25,748.86.
Air gas, $67.50. Andrew Romish is $204.60. AT&T Mobility is $575.74. Avatar is $1,699. Block 5 Tech is $3,526.47. Casella Waste is $29,753.95. Denson Construction is $21,900. Donovan Equipment is $1,257.72. East Coast Emergency Outfitters is $532.98. E&J Auto Parts is $266.51. Epping Car Wash $64 even. Eversource is $1,607.27. Fletch's Sandblasting is $1,850. Teresa Frank is $80 even. Timothy Levante is $137.94. LCB Transport is $250 even. Liberty International Trucks is $825.68. McFarland Ford is $232.84. Medical Business Services is $1,437.26. Mitchell Municipal is $2,422.39. Morton Salt is $4,801.31. New England Vehicle Outfitters is $355. New Hampshire Building Officials is $105. New Hampshire Municipal Association is $175. North of Boston Media Group is $94.05. Telmac Industries is $385. Quadient Financial is $2,013. Street Cop Training is $225. Keck Inc. is $150. The trust funds is $1,200 even. UniFirst Corp is $63.40. Valak is $211.45. WB Mason is $476.26.
For a total of $78,946.32. We had one ACH transfer to New Hampshire Retirement for $38,195.40. 24 hours of overtime in the police department, 7 in the fire department, and 3 in the highway department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a nice Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes,
You as well.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to have John Morgan attend remotely?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor, roll call vote. I'm an aye.
Aye.
Bob's an aye.
Aye.
And I need a motion to have Jen attend remotely.
Motion.
Second.
I'm an aye.
Aye.
Russ? John? John, you and I? Alright,
Hi, sorry.
that's okay. Can you hear us okay?
I'm great.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. Consent agenda tonight includes the minutes from 11:15, the recreation manifest, the treasurer's report, and building permit,
Non-public minutes of 11:15 as well.
and the non-public minutes of 11:15.
Motion for the consent.
Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
Motion second. I'm an aye. Bob?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Jen?
Abstain.
John?
Abstain.
Document this?
I just have a letter, so it's later on in the agenda, but I have a letter to the New Hampshire Department of State, the Election Ballot Commission from the Selectboard, expressing your support to have those 27 ballots counted.
Make a motion.
Let me read it first, unless you want to read.
I'll read it.
Erin, do you want me to speak to this at all, or is it pretty self-explanatory?
I think it's self-explanatory, but if you want to chime in after you read the letter in case there's something that you wanted to add.
Okay, thanks.
Dear Commissioners, there was a recount conducted on Concord for the State Representative District 6 race between Eric Turner and Melissa Litchfield on November 14th, 2022. The results were upheld, however, an error was made that involved 27 uncounted absentee ballots. We write to you today to express our support to include the 27 absentee ballots in our count. These voters were included in the voter checklist and feel that all votes cast should be counted. We understand that this may change the outcome of the election. Please do not hesitate to contact us if you have any questions or concerns. And then it's got Karen's number.
Jen, did you have anything else to add?
No, I just wanted to say that I had suggested this to Karen after being approached by a member of the town who felt that even though those votes are likely to be counted after some statements by the Secretary of State, that it would certainly be a good look for our select board to encourage those votes to be counted, as we had all been in verbal agreement to do so, and thought that it certainly couldn't hurt for us to put a letter in. So that's why this came forward.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to submit this? Motion, second,
Second.
by Russ. I'm an aye. Bob?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Motion carries.
only note goes along with the energy subcommittee, so we'll have to, oh, sorry, thank you.
Communications Subcommittee.
This is Steve Dawson.
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
Hi, Steve. I can stay if you want.
No, have a
Just
chair.
have a seat. You good? So I am Steve Dawson of One Lad Road, Brentwood. I'm here representing your Communications Subcommittee. Stephanie Lewandon, who's the chair, has a personal matter. She wasn't able to be here, so she asked me to present in her stead. In addition to Stephanie, your subcommittee for communications includes Rebecca Dunham, Bridget Zacher, Letty Bedard, Joshua Bertulin, Danette Schleger, and myself as assistant chair, I think I am. So we have two matters to bring to you quickly this evening. First is just to ask you to acknowledge and accept our mission statement that we've developed. Have you received the materials? Okay, so you've got all that, and I have copies if anyone is interested. So first matter is our mission statement, which is just a one-sentence statement that reads, "The mission of the Communications Subcommittee is to assist the town of Brentwood in providing positive, transparent, and productive information to our residents and the general public," in short. So we ask you to review that and accept that at some point. And then the second request is we developed a recommendation for the process for creating future subcommittees. And this came up acknowledging that your select board within the last year or so has established, I think, 3 additional subcommittees, and that we thought that if you're likely to establish any future ones, that we would recommend a process that gave the townspeople time to understand what the suggested subcommittee's purpose was, have a chance to, if they were interested, recommend themselves or someone else on the committee, and just provide somewhat of a structure for any future subcommittees going forward. It's just a suggested process. We thought, as your communications subcommittee, might be helpful. So we've developed this, what you have before you, and with Karen was very helpful in giving us input, so she's reviewed this and helped us improve it. So I'm happy to review it quickly with you, or if you've had a chance to look at it, I can answer your questions. I'm happy to just do a quick summary, if you'd like.
On the application, you don't think we should put that disclosure that we had the environmental committee sign onto this form?
I mean, you can, but it would be a separate form, an acknowledgement form, separate from
Okay.
this.
I didn't know if you should just disclose that when they're signing up for it, but maybe that's
If that's
condition.
part of it.
Maybe,
Yeah, that-
maybe add that they're responsible for the ethics and whatever policies that we ask them to review and sign.
Yeah, I think that, if I remember
Nepotism,
correctly,
ethics.
yeah, there was some ethics form that we do, and maybe just having them acknowledge that that's part of the committee.
Isn't that where it says my signature below indicates that I have received? At the bottom there, right above the signature line.
So there's a package that, for them read to know law 91A, so that they have a good understanding of what's a public meeting, how to do minutes, those kinds of items. So that's what that signature represents there.
So
It doesn't have that
That's not
form.
the ethics one.
No,
Does
that was a separate form, but
So
we
the
can add that line.
ethics form is what is there a number, I forget, under RSA? Or
I
is
think
it-
it's RSA 31 or 39, or maybe it's colon 31, 39.
So a reference to that added in here?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just thinking we should probably, if somebody's filling out an application, it'd probably be just proactive, just to disclose it up front. That's the only thing I see is trying to get changed.
Karen, didn't you combine the town ethics policy basically with the 91A paperwork into like a joint packet for the most recent committee?
I put it in as one packet, but it was still separate signatures for them to acknowledge them separately that they had received them.
Okay, perfect, so we can just list both.
website. My bad. I was thinking that it was covered, but it wasn't, so I might have seen a little work there.
All right, so let's condense this down a little bit. I'll take a motion to accept the mission statement.
Motion. Second.
Motion and a second to accept the mission statement. Any further discussion on the mission statement? Hearing none, I'm an aye. Bob?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Mission statement passes. Now the application, I'll take a motion to accept the application for a statement of interest as submitted, with the addition of the ethics information.
Motion. Second.
Motion and a second. Bob and Russ. Any further discussion on the application? I'm an aye. Bob?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Now the creation process. If you want to just
Sure.
generally outline that.
So again, our thinking was the purpose is to, if a future subcommittee is considered, sponsored by any individual in town or someone on the select board, that this would provide people in town a chance to understand what it's about, have a chance to be involved in the process and volunteer themselves or someone else to be part of the subcommittee. So what we've suggested here is a two-phase process. Informal phase where anyone in town, including someone on the select board, could begin to explore, research an idea for a particular subcommittee that might serve the interests of the select board and the town. Research it, talk with people in town, talk with experts related to the issue, and be free, of course, to do that kind of thinking in preparation for suggesting a formal process where that sponsor would, in writing, alert the select board with proper 24-hour notice that they wanted to propose the creation of a particular subcommittee, brief statement of what it is, what the terms, what the expertise would be needed, number of members, et cetera. And that would be presented to the select board at a meeting that was again properly noticed. At that meeting in which the suggestion from the sponsor was considered, the select board would review that information and decide whether they thought it might be a good idea to explore or not. If they decided to proceed, if you decide to proceed, then that would initiate a 30-day process in which the description of the subcommittee and the term of office, et cetera, would be posted on the official website, on the bulletin board, any other official medium of communication, and within that notification, urge individuals in town who wanted to participate potentially as members would fill out the form that was just discussed and accepted, and that initial vote of the board would not be a commitment to actually create the subcommittee. It would just be a commitment to enter into this process. So then there would be, that would initiate at least a 30-day time period in which that posting would occur, people would have a chance to look at it, you all would have a chance to consider it. Then at a subsequent meeting, no sooner than 30 days, but whenever you wished afterwards, then you would consider formal acceptance of the committee as proposed, amended, however you wished, and then you would vote that up or down. So the idea is to not commit you to undertaking any particular subcommittee by any means. It's just an attempt to provide a structure and enough time for townspeople to know what's going on and volunteer their time. So informal process phase and then a formal phase with a 30-day time period for people to think about it, as well as yourselves. And again, that wording of the memo here is, Karen has looked at, made some suggestions to make it proper, and we value that. both the mission statement and this proposal was accepted by our subcommittee by consensus. Everyone agreed to make this recommendation.
Motion.
Where would this document live? In the selectmen's,
Or policy book.
motion by Bob, do I have a second?
Yeah, second. The motion is obviously to approve.
Yes. Motion and a second. Any further discussion on the proposed process for creation of a subcommittee?
Well thought out, thank you guys.
Hearing none, I'm an aye. Bob? Russ?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wayne, come on down. Give it to us, Wayne.
Everybody read it?
Okay, I'll start, want me to go line item by line item?
We should probably do highway, right?
Yeah,
Do some-
well, that's what he's asking, if he wants to do the highway line items.
Yeah.
Attached to your sheet, you have a breakdown of every line of how and why there is either a increase or a decrease. So if you just want to start with salaries, line?
Yep, can do that. Okay, on the salaries, I came with 203,218.60. This is for 3 full-time guys down there. And I started this, I put a 5%, first 5%, and then we changed it and came to the 7.5%. And everybody was talking about the 7.5, so I included all that in, so it would be there. I mean, if we get it, we don't get it, that's whatever. But it came to 203,218.60. And just so you know, I also did the same thing on the seasonal guys for plowing during the winter. They were getting $25 an hour, and I went with the 7.5 there to bring those guys up, because I need to keep them. The way things are, I figured, well, I'll go right across the board with that, with the 7.5 for the, there's 4, I've got down 4 part-time plow drivers that we have to come in, and the 3 full-time guys.
So it's at $26.88 an hour for them?
Yeah, I'll tell you what the salary was for the wages for the seasonal guys was, it's 21,504. It was an increase of 1,504 from the 22 due to proposed seasonal wage raises.
Any questions on the salary line?
No.
I guess my only question, the salary line for 2023, does that represent what was the proportion increase? I'm sorry, was it 7.5% straight increase across the board?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
They completed their performance reviews, and based off of that scale, that's what they would receive.
Karen just said the performance reviews are in line with that percentage.
And do we know, like, are they all in line with surrounding areas, or are we competitive, or are we not?
I think we're competitive as far as the highway department. I think for seasonal drivers, it varies widely. There's postings upwards of $35 an hour for seasonal drivers.
Do you think you're gonna be safe with your seasonal drivers, or not?
Well, I talked to them, they seem to be okay. They haven't said that. Now, I do wanna tell you guys, with these two new seasonal guys that I have here, just so everybody knows, those guys work in pretty much all summer. We had to send our trucks out because we've been having troubles with the DEF stuff, the fuels. We send it out, we get it fixed, but we also find to get those trucks back here, that we send them out to different guys, and they don't know how to fix them. They're no different. These two guys jumped on them this summer, and they went on the computer, and they look at the computer, get on there, and they watched with the problems of these trucks. They watched on the computer what happened, and then they came down and they fixed these trucks. We tore three of the big trucks. Well, two of them we did back this summer, but last week we had one he took out for a test drive, and when he was going down the road with it, it had a broken spring in it. That spring let go when he went out just to test drive the truck. It broke. He brought it back, and the dry shaft on the truck was just barely in when it broke. We tore that truck down, and we put all new springs in there, and we also did the brakes where we did, because the brake where we had it all apart. We did a brake job on the truck, because when it went in for a sticker, they told me next year we were definitely gonna have to have new brakes. So where we had it all apart, and right down, we took it all apart and put it all back together. And with all that work that these guys are actually doing, they're saving this town big money. You send this truck out for hourly work that you're gonna pay deal.
$175 an hour minimum.
Yeah, easy.
Because in Liberty, that's what they're charging, right?
Yep.
$175 an hour?
Yep. So, I just feel what these two guys are doing down there, they deserve it. Because they're saving everybody a lot of money. And we're also getting all the other work done too as well. And we have quite a bit of stuff that come in during the day down there for us. Right now, we're fighting beavers, but they're a chore. They're a big chore, let me tell you that.
I'm just staying out of that.
Yep, but they're plugging up the culverts, so we gotta keep them cleaned out. And,
All right, to move this along a little bit.
Okay.
Anybody have a question between salaries and heating oil?
No, I think fuel's gonna be up, and we all know that, so.
Is electric in there?
Yes, electric is just above heating oil.
Yeah, so, I know that we've talked about this like 10 times before, but I still don't think that I totally understand how it works. Karen, does that number go against the solar panel generation, the $7,500 here?
We still have to appropriate the money because the highway department has their separate bill. And the amount is increased because of the supply increase and also because of the new addition.
Okay, so then, does theoretically, would putting additional solar panels on the highway shed reduce that cost?
we'd have to expand our net metering to include other departments because the panels at the at the fire station generate enough to offset the usage at all of the buildings before the addition was built.
But we were over-generating too.
We were over generating and I wouldn't imagine that that small building would produce so
Yeah.
much power that it would offset.
That's unheated and it's
The
cold
cost.
storage, so the only thing we have is lighting.
And it would be a
Karen,
set,
do we use the highway shed invoices right now for net metering?
yes.
Yes, so what's the real world cost? I think that's kind of what John is asking. It says
Yeah.
7,500 in the budget. What's the real world cost at the end of the day if we get good solar production for the whole year?
I'm not sure how to answer this. So each
Or,
of,
or even, what did it really cost us this year? Like, I'm just trying to understand, like, that number, that's a really dramatic increase, right? More than doubling. It's 133% increase in 1 year on electric costs to the taxpayers, at least as far as the budget is concerned. And so I'm trying to understand, what does that really mean when, we're trying to take in all these invoices against our net metering?
so I don't know, I'd have to total up what all of the electric bills are amongst all of the buildings total. I don't have that figure off of the top of my head, what's appropriated separately for each building. When we net out at the end of the year, we say we have about $10,000 in revenue from the solar panels. And going into '23, when we purchased them, the invoice, the $25,000 that's in the the government buildings budget, that will be reduced because we won't have the revision bill in Q4 of '23. Because we'll own
What's the
panels.
revision bill again?
We have to pay, it's like, we pay them instead of paying Eversource for the energy, for the utility, so it's like 8 cents and change that we pay for the distribution there. And so that will go away once we own the solar panels.
So right now, we're getting about 10 grand, but we might get more because we're not gonna have the fourth quarter.
Right, so the income will increase and then that bill, instead of being 25,000, I'm gonna drop it about 6 grand because Q4 won't be included. So that'll absorb this increase here, plus what was approved already prior for rec.
So we're still paying an electric bill at all these places, it's just we
Yes.
get the net metering check that helps to offset some of that.
Right,
Okay, so then we would definitely potentially save a large amount of money for the taxpayers if we had additional solar generation. Because we're only getting $10,000 in revenue, but our costs are, if the highway shed is doing $7,500 alone, I'm assuming our electric costs are far higher than that.
but that's also because we're paying revision $25,000 a year, so when that drops off, right, so Q4 will drop off next year, then in '24, that'll drop off completely. And that's when you'll see dramatic savings in '24.
Instead of making 10,000, we're gonna be making
You'll jump up to, right,
30,
That approach.
30,000.
35.
because that appropriation will drop completely and then your revenue will increase.
Would it make,
Theoretically, your electricity bill, should drop flat to zero, basically, if your net metering is less than what your solar panel is producing.
So, yeah, that's where I'm trying to get to.
If you own it.
So I'm trying to understand, do we pay $30,000 a year right now for electricity?
We pay more than that amongst all of the buildings. So the net metering is only tied to the fire station bill. So the fire station is the only department that directly sees a reduction in their costs. And then all of the other town departments have stayed the same. We've paid the revision bill, and then the income is what offsets what was the
Okay.
fire station costs.
So I don't want to belabor this point, I don't think that we need to talk about it anymore tonight, but I would like for us, or maybe, Russ, maybe this is a good thing for the energy committee to be aware of and to evaluate the potential cost savings, for adding, since we already spend more than $30,000 on our electric bill for the town, would adding capacity help us mid and long term to reduce that burden on the taxpayers? Is that something that you think they might be willing to look at?
Well, I mean, probably, the chairman of that, advisory committee is here and heard all of this, John, so,
Oh, awesome, okay.
we'll find out.
I think it may be worthwhile to pull electricity out of every department and maybe even heating oil and everything, and should be,
An energy budget.
yeah.
An energy bill, yeah.
Yeah, this is what we talked about last week, I think, especially next August, we're gonna purchase those solar panels, and then our net metering should equal our electricity bills, and so having it as a line item doesn't make a lot of sense if it's gonna zero out once we own the array. And to John's point, my understanding is if we already use the highway shed bill invoices for net metering, then we don't need new capacity. What we really need is to own the system and get out of the PPA that we're in. And so I think that will be the huge change. So next year in the summer, when it's still really sunny, we're gonna start seeing some of these benefits, and this line item of 7,500 is not actually gonna cost us that much, because we're gonna own the solar array as of next summer.
I believe we still have
It's
to
really
appropriate the
complicated.
money though, right?
We will, but if it's all appropriated in one place, right?
Right, but you would still appropriate, you wouldn't see the revenue
Right.
come back until the
Right,
next year's budget.
you would still have to
You
appropriate.
still have to appropriate.
So you want all electricity and heating in one, so move all of that to the government buildings budget?
Energy? No, you create a different budget.
We would have to decide where and what we wanted to do with it.
Because the government buildings already has line items for each of the departments in their building, facility maintenance and repairs. And that's already where the town office, electricity and heat lives.
I
And
think it makes the
electricity,
most sense, electricity/solar.
So we would just pay everything out of that one
Yeah.
line item.
yeah,
Yeah, most likely.
that would make most sense to me, and electricity would have to be separate. I like the idea of the energy line item, but it would have to be electricity and then, the oil
Right, it would have to be separate.
But you still have to, we
would have to be two
you still have
items
to appropriate it,
under
and then you
that
get
one
the,
heading.
it's kinda like the building permits, right? Still have to
Right.
Do this in order to offset it.
But I think it would be easier to show the in and out.
Right. Cause then we could say, here we go, and we've received this much, it offset that.
Right. Instead of
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
picking from different budgets.
And then it wouldn't be increasing on this specific budget. How difficult is it to move those now?
No,
You can't.
then we'll have to take everything back to budget committee and reopen everything and start over.
So right now,
I'm sorry, I'm saying no.
stay the course that we do next year, change that for next year.
And then I would guess that the budget committee would wanna see what we did, like we did health insurance, and see we'd have to do two budgets, with it in and with it out.
Okay.
It sounds like an after March discussion,
Yeah.
because we've also talked about moving payroll to one budget,
Oh, yeah.
so.
Everybody can live together.
You good with that, John?
yeah, I am, thank you.
Right, any other questions on the first page, from salaries to heating oil? Second page, equipment rental / mowing down to road construction. Wayne did a nice job, kind of like recreation, where he listed each line item and why he needs that amount of money, and, or, increase or? Any questions on that page?
Telephone, communications, $5,000, is installation and all that for the new office, is that what I'm gathering?
Yeah.
Which one was that, Russ?
The third line, telephone
Oh,
communications.
okay, yeah.
It's the phone line, the internet service, and then the landlines needed for the alarm panels.
Okay.
I had a question on the, supplies and parts. Just because I know that we talked so much about the trucks, needing parts and maintenance, is keeping it the same, is that enough to make sure that we're good?
So whenever this was done, John, our supplies and parts line had $170 left in it, so
Right.
when did you run that number? This week?
Last week?
So with 6 weeks to go, we had $70 left.
And your guys have been doing most of the work.
We've been getting parts, go
And
somewhere,
let them
get
do the
parts, I
work.
put it on supplies and parts, and we've been doing the work, so.
I mean, I'm fine, I'm fine with it, but we're kinda
Well-
squeaking in there.
Right, and hopefully we did all the work this year, that we don't need $5,000 worth of parts
Yeah,
next year.
hopefully we won't have the same amount breakdowns that we've had this year, but going into next year, but unless everything goes up on us again, then it just,
We don't pay those things.
The telephone and communications, couldn't that be out of that construction budget that we have? The capital reserve that we set up or not?
Those are just routine landlines.
But they're new for a new building, huh?
But we were pulling money from different places anyways to,
I thought we didn't have enough to build the building?
Not in the capital reserve fund, so it'd be capital reserve, it's ARPA, it's his road construction line from 22.
And we can't use impact on that, right? There's no impact on
There's
that,
no
right?
impact fees allocated for the highway department.
Are we still under the highway budget?
yes, we're still on the second page of lines.
Okay.
Any other questions on the second page?
What's the SB 38 at the bottom?
That was a lump sum of $100,000 that was granted to the town 5 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah,
so it
we
just stays there.
yeah.
All right, the last line item in the highway budget was equipment purchase with a dollar placeholder.
Now, the reason why I have that there, that takes care of the radios in our trucks. Now, I don't know what's going on, I know the fire department and the police department, they've had two-way over there, they're doing some kind of changing with their radios. So now we've tried to, last winter, we tried to talk to them, and we have a town channel, but we couldn't get anybody. We don't know if they changed something that we couldn't get them in the radios, but that's what I put that in there for, is basically to take care of the radios, because all the trucks had radios in them. Now, our two new ones, I took the old ones, we've had to take the old ones out of the old trucks, but I haven't tried to see if I can put those old radios in these new trucks. So the two new trucks that we have now, I have no radios in it. I'm gonna try to see if I can get two-way to, maybe they can work them up so we can put the same radios back in. I have $1 to cover that. I figured with $1 and go with the bottom line and to do any repairs or put in radios, because you don't put radios in very often. Once they're in there, so.
You know more about the radios, do they change the frequencies or what?
No, I would assume it's just that
I think
the
they
police
still,
department's not scanning the town channel, or that their main channels are so busy now that they're not picking up.
Yeah, that's what we thought too.
The town channel will be best for them to use truck to truck, and then if they need emergency services, to call dispatch.
And that they have to do by cell phone or whatever.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing. We,
Okay.
it's just as easy to use our cell phones as it is to get on the radio and do it, so.
So the total budget is 437, 326, 31. It's an increase of $37,284.97 for a total of 9.32%. Any more discussion?
Any more?
Question?
Sure, Jim.
That's the sum
On
of it.
the budget versus expenditures, it looks like the highway budget has not expended $130,000 of its budget with 1 month left to go in the year. Do we anticipate that money going back into the general fund?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
It's the only place it can go, and
Yeah.
it's,
But I would think we don't, unless we have like a huge, road construction project in the next, 4 weeks, we're not likely to spend down much of that 130,000, I wouldn't think.
Well,
Well,
the-
could we encumber
And-
some of the monies
and
for
right-
the telephone?
The 30,000 in road construction will be spent towards the highway addition.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that'll come out.
Yeah,
So
and
that
then,
would be around 100,000 going back.
well, right now, the highway budget is at 307, and 400 was budgeted, so it's,
Oh, right, I was looking at this year, yeah.
so
So about
it's 93,000 right now, minus 30, you'd be at 63,000,
60 will go back.
yeah,
Okay,
pending no snowstorms through,
December 31st.
or whenever the payroll ends. Because the 31st is on a
Now,
Sunday.
The snow budget that's off to the side, is that a separate budget?
Yes,
Okay, so yeah, so it's not snow related.
but some of the full-time salaries is still in the highway budget. The snow budget is just the seasonals,
Gotcha,
some overtime, and then the sand and salt.
gotcha.
So I have a motion for 437, 326, 31. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Bob, second by Russ. Any further discussion? I'm an aye. Bob?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Alright. Snow and ice control.
Okay,
We,
Okay.
well, could look through the half page of stuff.
Most of this is gonna be an increase with the salt.
Yep.
Sand, salt, cold patch, because that's an increase. The whole budget is up 27,566.06. And the majority of that is 26,726.50, which is gonna be salt, sand, and cold patch. Price went up, which we knew. And then you have a seasonal increase of 1504 to get your total 27,566.06.
I think you also increased the amount of tons of salt that you purchased this year as well.
Yeah, we upped it a little bit because we were worried.
Right.
Because
We went halvesies with Wayne.
So total budget is $222,933.06, which is an increase of 27,566.06, which is a 14.10% increase. And again, the majority of that is for materials versus sand, salt, and cold patch. I'll make a motion if there's no other discussion.
Can I, just one quick thing, Bob?
Sure.
If you don't mind. So we've, on the planning board, we've actually talked about, the salt and sand, snow removal, process in Brentwood. And there seems to be, quite a bit of interest, and I fully support this as well, in seeking to get Green Snow Pro certification, for our snow removal and salt in town, especially given our proximity to et cetera. And the new developments that are coming online, as well. The green snow course certification is, needs to be done every 5 years. It's only about $400 for the course per person. And I was hoping that would be something that we could, ask Wayne if he would consider including in the program, maybe not necessarily for this coming winter, given that we're right here, but, in the near future.
What's defined in that green snow pro?
It's a program run, UNH runs one of the programs, DES, basically it's a voluntary New Hampshire DES, salt applicator certification. So it, provides state-of-the-art salt reduction practices that prioritize public safety while mitigating salt usage. And it's covered under, RSA 489-C. And, also, relevant is RSA 508:22, since we're taking notes here.
But they charge you $500 for a course, but it's voluntary, or
$400 per person
$400?
for the course, and it is voluntary, yes.
Okay.
There's no state mandate that we do this.
Do you have to buy any equipment for the truck to meter that? You go in through the course, but
That I just don't know.
I know, back on, we were gonna go to the course like that. We went to Kingston, we went in there we went in, we took the course, but I think you have to buy a bunch of meters for all your trucks as well, and that's big money.
Yeah, you have to log your salt usage every year and submit that to the state. You have to you have to renew your license with the state every year. Every 2 years, you have to take a refresher course, and every 5 years, you have to attend a full in-person course.
Because right now we only have $800 in the training budget for the whole
Yeah.
department.
Yep.
I think it would be a good presentation for somebody to put together and us to look at and see what the expense is. But Wayne already does a great job of mixing sand to salts. We rarely spread straight salt at all unless.
No, unless
The
it
sand pile
freezes.
freezes.
And then
Unless it freezes,
if
and you got a big chunk.
If
that
it
drops
freezes,
out.
then we don't have much choice, but we try to keep the sand and salt mixed, so it
Going
don't,
forward, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think
yeah, we can check
after
it.
budget
I think,
season, we can get a presentation scheduled.
I think Kingston just did that course probably a month ago. Because they asked us, well, we saw a couple of the guys last week and they wanted to know why we weren't there, but we didn't know anything about it. And, because Kingston had it at their highway shed. And they're gonna let us know next time if they have it down there.
Okay.
They have surrounding towns that come there, so.
So there's a motion on the floor for 222-933-06. Is there a second for that number?
Yes.
Russ seconds that number. Any further discussion? Hearing none. I'm an aye. Bob?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All set?
You're all set, Wayne.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yep, and you.
With your family.
Andy, quick question. Similar to my last question, obviously, we've only used a small percentage
What's that?
of our snow ice budget. Do we need to encumber funds for that, or do we not worry about that and just have it out of our extra funds?
So I established a fund a couple years ago that we'll have to do a warrant article for to take some of that money out if we want and put it into the emergency snow removal fund. I forget the exact name of it. But the idea was to kind of eventually stabilize the highway highway budget, so we didn't have, $50,000 left over at the end of the year, we could play more tight, and then if we had a big snowstorm, we had this revolving account there to protect us. So that's something we would do more towards December-ish, when we do warrant articles, to see if we wanna
Okay.
take some of that money and put it into, and then the voters would be able to decide whether they wanted it in there or left in the general fund to reduce taxes.
Okay, gotcha, because right now it's like 120,000. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Next, chief.
Okay, thank you.
You always be chief. Get too many pieces of paper going on here.
That's what happens when you unstable it.
All right, energy subcommittee discussion. Rick, do you want to come up?
Sure.
Come on down.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Floor is yours, sir.
Okay, I guess I wasn't expecting a presentation I thought I was here to answer questions, but
Yeah,
I can do whatever you want.
What do we have besides, the letter or the email from Matt Lipinski? Do we have other?
The agenda says joint powers agreement.
This is the
And
entire
then we
agreement.
have
These
something
are
from
legal
legal that
comments,
we
this is
have to
non-public.
review, which is non-public.
Rick, do you want me to kind of start off and?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I would love for you to start off, because everybody else here is confused.
Great, okay. So, the Energy Committee has had 2 meetings so far, and Rick is the chair. And at the last meeting last week, the committee spent some good time making a couple of decisions that they want to bring forward to the select board. One is a recommendation to sign the joint powers agreement, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute, and Rick can fill in. And then there was a few other sort of action items that the committee would like to move forward, including doing an energy audit in the town for the municipal buildings to look at where, kind of what we were just talking about with solar, where we're getting our energy from, how secure are our contracts, that sort of thing. And then the second thing was more of an efficiency audit. And the committee wanted to recommend to the board that we engage with Eversource to do a preliminary walkthrough audit of our municipal buildings to see if there might be some sort of low-hanging fruit and obvious energy efficiency changes that we could make, including LED lighting and things like that. So those were sort of the 3 big things that came out of last week's meeting that they wanted to bring forward. And then relating specifically to the joint powers agreement, we've talked about this a couple of times before. And so I will kind of just give the outline for everybody to make sure we're on the same page. And then I'll turn it over to Rick. So essentially, the select board has been talking about aggregating the energy customers in Brentwood, which would allow us to seek out different and more flexible energy contracts than what we are currently getting for default from Eversource. And the way to do this is to use an aggregator. Right now in New Hampshire, there is a group called CPCNH, the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, which was formed just over a year ago and now has about 25 members and represents almost 25% of the state. That organization is a nonprofit that is helping these communities aggregate, and then moving forward will become the aggregator that supplies the energy. The first step to join the nonprofit is to sign the joint powers agreement, which basically gets you on their nonprofit board and gets you a seat on the board. And then they sort of walk you through the whole process of going through aggregation. I know there are some questions, and there was an email from Matt Lipinski that I think is a very good point. There's some questions about how binding this joint powers agreement is. And Karen, I know you were going to have our legal counsel review it. I don't know if that has occurred yet, or if we're still waiting for that.
I just received the response from legal around 2:30 today, so the members present have viewed it, but if we want to discuss that, that can be done in non-public session.
The other thing I was gonna bring up is, my understanding is the environmental committee still hasn't had the presentation from this group that was supposed to be scheduled, I believe, for December 7th,
Which committee?
the environmental committee.
Energy.
The energy.
The energy
sorry,
committee?
was having the.
That's correct.
So.
Yep, the decision was made, they took it to a vote at the last meeting because of just the timing of everything. And the group felt comfortable moving forward and took a vote last week.
Right. My understanding is you guys were gonna be waiting to have that presentation so that way they could present and hear all the facts from that group. Whatever the CPCNHJPA, that was gonna have somebody come and presenting so that way we could have all the information. And my understanding is there was some pressure put on them to have that vote made last time they met versus waiting for the presentation to be done. And I know when we had the discussion here, there was some pressure being applied to have us as a board make that decision, and we agreed to pause to let this energy committee kind of have their meeting and hopefully invite them to have that discussion. But now there's been a vote before they even had the presentation done, which is gonna be done on the 7th, so in 2 weeks. I don't understand what the rush is for, without getting all the information.
To speak to the pressure, the only pressure here is just time pressure, given that town meeting is in March. And after an in-depth discussion about this, the committee did not want to wait another year if we didn't have to, and wanted to try as hard as possible to get something before the voters in March. And so the committee took it to a vote. And Rick, you can speak if you want, if you feel that it was a fair vote of the committee, but that was the committee's decision.
And my understanding is, Rick, you also wanted to pause and wait for that presentation, but then you agreed to put it to a vote under the pressure that I think was pushed forward to kind of get a vote on this quickly. I don't see there's any harm in waiting, and again, it's an advisory committee. I don't see any harm in waiting until you get the presentation on the 7th, and then putting together something that we have more information. Before I jump into a water, I want to know what's in the water. So I don't see you know that.
Can I speak, or I can if you want?
Yeah, Bob asked you a question. so-
Okay. There was no pressure, okay? And I would advise you all to read the joint powers agreement before you vote up or down on it. I would advise you to have your legal counsel opine on it before you vote up or down on it. And I would say that regardless of what the representative says to us on December 7th, and I've spoken with him a couple of times in the last few weeks, picked his brain, asked him some very difficult questions. Not difficult, but the right questions to get to the heart of the matter. It's the document that controls. So if he comes to the meeting on December 7th and just gives us his best polished discussion points on the program, it doesn't relieve us of the responsibility to read the agreement and have legal review the agreement and get comfortable with it ourselves. So that was one of the reasons why waiting an additional 2 weeks just to have him come and give a 20-minute presentation was not particularly compelling reason for me to delay. The other reason to accelerate was that there is additional work that this committee needs to do, including preparing a supplementary agreement, the community power plan, presenting it to two public forums, all before this February 7th deadline for a warrant article or something, if it gets to that stage. So there was just a lot of work to be done, and the thought was between the 16th of November and December 7th, our next meeting, was a lot of days ticking by, and we thought we could get this step out of the way. But again, I would advise you to read it and have council weigh in on it before you vote on it.
And what's the benefits of joining? Is there a financial benefit to the town? Have you guys looked at that or not?
We've just started to signing this joint powers agreement. This is it's just an agreement to join with 21 or 22 other towns who are collectively joining this coalition, whose purpose is to facilitate some of the non-contractual obligations of forming these power supply agreements. Some of the HR functions, some insurance functions, some administrative oversight functions. Not until the town votes on an electric aggregation plan, which would be at the town meeting in March, is there any motion towards offering residents a power purchase plan. So we're many steps away from that. But to your general question on if there's an economic benefit, that's one of the primary reasons for doing it.
Is there a savings at all that you're aware of?
The plan isn't formulated yet, but you can write these community power aggregation plans any way you want. You can write them to say, we will not enter into this power supply arrangement unless it beats Eversource's rate by X percent. And you can structure it that way. And they are all by law completely, you can get out at any time. So, and these are all things that will be brought forth in as much detail as we have time for at these two public sessions.
Right.
So it's not much different than buying your power from a third-party retail supplier. You can jump out anytime you want. You can jump back in as well.
So one of the things that, when you look at contracts and you look at policy documents and you look at stuff like that, that's what I do for a living, so you kind of look at things and I value when people review those, but one of the things that I looked at is this agreement that you guys voted to advise us that you recommend us signing, is there's a cost sharing agreement. Has anybody done any analysis of what that cost impact is gonna be for us? Because this is sharing the costs of everything. Costs, expenses, debts, liabilities, which means any insurance and everything else, and we're gonna be a member of this group, which means now we're gonna have cost sharing agreements, and it's not, can be, it's we shall. So I need to know, has anybody looked at what the financial impact is? Because we have to appropriate for that.
That's a separate agreement that will be brought before this governing board
That's part of the contract.
as a separate agreement. It says you.
I can
Yeah.
speak to that as well. So the joint powers agreement just has you join the nonprofit coalition as a member. You have to sign, and it would be approved by this governing body, a cost-sharing agreement if you want to actually use the coalition to procure your aggregated energy in the future. The assumption is that you will, of course, do that because you've been on the coalition to create this product that is theoretically better than what you can get through Eversource, and so that you would want to do that. But it is the JPA is not itself the cost-sharing contract. It references it, but that is a separate standalone contract that would have to be signed by the town. And in our case, we would likely not be signing that for a year or more if we decide to go forward. So that is not the decision that's on the table. In terms of the costs, I've talked to people in other states that have done this. And the way the costs work is it goes into your rate. So if your rate was 10 cents per kilowatt hour, it would be 10.1 cents per kilowatt hour, and the 0.1 would cover all the administrative costs of the coalition. And that's how it's done universally for all different aggregators, like Freedom Energy, other companies that are aggregators. And therefore that cost is only paid by people who choose to use the aggregator. And anybody in town who chooses not to does not see those costs. It's one of the benefits and one of the flexibility that's built into this program, is that if you are not interested in taking part, you do not pay any costs, and there is nothing that is budgeted by the town. It is paid by the consumer.
Kind of compare this, Bob, to the Southern New Hampshire trash district, that we're a member and we reap the benefits, but we also reap the cost of
The risk.
well, not just the risk, but the cost. I mean, there's administrative cost to that group.
Well, and I even see if we sign this agreement, there's also continuing obligations that come in here, even if we withdraw.
Only if, can I address
Sure,
that? Only if you say it refers back to like Article 6 or something, which means the only continuing obligations are if you have executed a project contract, or what's the other one it refers back to?
It
Is it the-
says, the member agreement, the continuing obligations, it says the paragraph creates an affirmation requirement that a member will be bound by continued obligations under future project contracts and cost-sharing agreements,
Right,
even if the member withdraws from this agreement.
yep,
It also empowers the coalition to withhold funds otherwise owed to a member to cover the member's liability under those other agreements.
so again, that is referring back to separate agreements that would be discussed at this board at a future date. So it's not, those project contracts, that's like if this area, Portsmouth wanted to put a big solar array on a field in Portsmouth. The coalition would, notify all its members and say, do you want to be part of this solar PPA contract for this project that's going in Portsmouth? And if you want to make that part of your aggregated power supply, you could join in and sign that side project contract, right? So obviously, if we signed a 5 or 10 year power supply deal to be part of that contract was used to finance and construct that solar project. So yeah, we would be taking on that additional burden, but that is not a burden that is contained by that contract.
Even though it says members to agree, each member certifies that it intends to and does contract with every other member, and in addition with such other members as may be added. Each member also certifies that the withdrawal or termination of any member from this agreement does not affect this agreement, each member's obligations under the agreement, and each remaining members intend to contract with the other members that remain.
Can I just hold on?
So to me, it looks like even if you withdraw, you're still bound by it,
By what?
by the
Hold on,
contract
hold on.
we're gonna sign into for membership.
Can I ask whoever's cell phone is dinging to either leave or put it on silence, please?
I'd also like to ask, Mr. Chairman, that conversations cease. If someone has a conversation, they want to take it down the hall, if you don't mind.
Sure. Go ahead.
So, I mean, to me, it looks like if I sign this membership agreement that we're getting into, there's, inside the first paragraph, section 1, it basically says that we intend to. So it's not, well, we're gonna kind of take a look at it. It's basically locking me in, because it says that each member certifies that it intends to and does contract with every other member, and in addition, with such other members as may later be added. So you're basically, you're locking me in
To that contract.
to this
The one that
contract,
you're
which
holding.
also has
Yes.
continuing obligations about,
Only if you sign
Forms and-
additional contracts
Well,
thereafter.
doesn't
Mr. Chairman,
doesn't say that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Are we planning to go into non-public to hear about the legal advice on this?
I was just gonna ask Karen that.
Uh,
Would it be
Is
worthwhile
there a
to,
reason it needs to be non-public? If it's just,
Because it's legal.
You don't wanna disclose attorney.
it has to be?
language.
yeah, because it's attorney-client communications.
Okay.
I don't, I mean, Jen, we could always go into non-public and say that we have an intention to come back into public.
Well, I mean, I understand that there's concerns. I'd like to hear what our lawyer says and if they have concerns. And if they don't, then I think we can end this conversation.
That's where I was going with it.
Right,
Yeah.
and my suggestion was to table this so we all can review it and then listen to what our attorney has to say, and then
I would agree
when
with
you
that.
two are sitting at the table, we can have further discussion about that to make it easier.
I'm fine with that.
Is
I
it
mean, it
worthwhile
sounds like
to,
there's a lot of, it sounds like there's a lot of interest in getting this moving, so we don't have to keep waiting weeks between actually taking substantive action, if that's what's gonna end up happening. So I don't know, I feel like this is not, we just can hear what our attorney has to say and then make a decision on it. I don't know why it has to take much longer.
Do your next action items hinge on this being signed, or can you move forward with starting the creation of that community plan without this signature?
Yeah, we can.
But we're still having meetings before they even have their December 7th, right?
You'll have a meeting on Tuesday night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we,
the 29th.
next
So we can
Tuesday.
discuss it next Tuesday if you guys are gonna be around.
I mean, I will be overseas, surprise, surprise, but
But would you be back this week to come in and read the legal draft?
I can email this to them. They just can't,
Can't be disclosed,
it
right?
can't be disclosed.
Yeah, so the idea being that next week, when we meet, everyone will have had an opportunity to read the contract, to read legal's opinion.
and then ask any further questions
Ask
of
any
legal?
further questions, any further discussion, but at least by next Tuesday, we'll be,
And then they would have
More
something
More
for their
informed.
December 7th meeting, because that would be before December 7th.
'Cause I personally don't feel I'm ready to take a vote, because I have no idea what this document entails or does, or,
well, and I think that what Rick is saying is he's, made it clear, and he encourages us to do just that, to have the opportunity to read the materials and to consult with legal and go forward. So we're talking about next Tuesday, that we should be more informed.
Should the legal opinion be shared with their committee or not? How's that work?
It's a good
You
question.
could vote to do that, but they should discuss it in non-public if they're going to.
Because they probably should be aware of
Yeah, I
what legal
agree with
says
that.
too.
I don't know that that's necessary, given that they are advisory and the decision is completely up to the governing body. So we could certainly do that, but the decision is at our level.
I'm just wondering if it would be beneficial for them to understand maybe a legal opinion on the contract. Because they're advising us that they might have a difference of opinion just based on a legal opinion from our counsel.
well, that's something we,
Yeah, well,
down the road.
So
So,
the joint powers agreement is already on the drive. Look up the date in which folder it's in, and I'll send that out with the legal opinion, so you guys can all review
you'll put
that.
it in one little, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I sent it around, I don't know, probably a month ago.
so I'll make a motion to table this.
Second,
Moved and seconded, I'm an aye. Bob,
aye.
Russ,
All right.
Jen,
No,
John,
I,
motion carries.
Thank you, Rick.
You got it.
Appreciate your
Thank
work
you.
and the committee's work, very good.
And happy Thanksgiving to you and your
Yeah,
family.
happy Thanksgiving.
What's the
The
MOU?
next
So,
one's-
the next item on the agenda is an MOU with the Brentwood newsletter. It was asked to be put on the agenda because Jen and John are traveling and not in attendance. I've asked it to be tabled and not discussed. I don't know if you guys wanna take a vote on that, or, just forget it even existed.
Memo of understanding, right?
Yes,
I'm like,
memorandum of understanding, I'm over it.
I'm sitting here like, I'm looking at Moo. What's Moo? I mean, we don't even have their budget to be presented, do we? So,
Well, they're here with their budget, but this was asked to supersede before we voted on their budget, so,
okay.
I'm just gonna table it. Unless there's a problem.
That's an issue.
Letter of support for Plan NH.
This was asked to be put on the agenda by John Morgan.
John?
Yeah, thanks. So we talked about the charrette process multiple times. Again, my sincere thanks to the select board for their continued support of the Economic Development Committee and the potential charrette process, which is penciled in for May as of now. Seem to have all the ducks in a row. The last thing that Plan NH just asked us to provide was letters of support from various committees in town, just demonstrating that basically we're all behind this, and intend to try to get as many folks to participate as possible, since that's such an integral part of this process. So the planning board, the Economic Development Committee have both agreed unanimously to provide letters of support for this process in May to be delivered to Plan NH. I'm going to also ask that the select board allow us to submit a letter of support with Andy's signature. I'm happy to draft that and send it over to Karen for review, and it will basically just say that the select board stands fully in support of this process and intends to attempt to personally participate and get as many folks to participate as possible. And thank you to Plan NH for their willingness to help develop a vision for Brentwood's rec, long-term vision for Brentwood's rec facilities. That's all.
Is there a website that you have that maybe people could look it up or no?
It's plannh.org.
Thanks.
And we probably can just basically mimic the planning board letter.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, and I was just thinking that if we could just make, so here's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get to a signed contract before, obviously, the next few weeks here, so we can encumber the funds. So planning board has agreed to encumber, or has agreed to $3,000. Economic development, $3,000. I need to encumber that, and then the rec committee, $3,000. So that's gets us to the $9,000, which will more than cover the expense for the charrette in May, and then the extra money, there'll probably be about $1,500 extra, roughly, will be divided up evenly between the three committees. Go back to those three committees.
So it would be $3,500 roughly? For each?
Three.
Well, but he said there was another 1,500 that would have to be divided up.
No, sorry. 1,500 was the. So I'm saying it's about $7,500.
Okay. So you're gonna have so they might get a credit back if they raise.
A credit of
Okay. So $7,500 total.
But this isn't,
that's roughly, Bob. Just to be clear, there's a variable cost based on the
Hotels and
requirement to
stuff
pay
like
for hotels and yeah.
and this isn't a motion to approve the money, this is just a motion to
Approve the letter.
support.
The letter of support. Yeah, the money, the $3,000 from planning board has been put forward, I think approved already. Karen, I think.
I need a contract before the board can vote on it to encumber
Yeah,
the funds.
so, right, so this is getting me to the contract. That's what these letters of support are for.
John, do you want or need a letter from the rec commission?
Yes, I've asked Pat Farrell, who sits on the rec commission, to to talk with Andy about that, but, Karen, if you wouldn't mind as well, just pinging him, that would be great.
And has the rec already voted for it, or?
The rec voted for the $3,000, yeah, back in August.
I'm just, because I know that they probably don't meet that frequently either, so I didn't know how long that takes for them to do.
And that will come out of the revolving fund when that's approved, so that doesn't need to be an encumbrance.
Okay, cool. I'll make a motion that we sign a letter.
Do you have a second?
Oh, second, yeah.
Motion by Bob, second by Russ. Any further discussion on the item?
This will just be for Andy to sign, is that your intent, Bob?
Yeah, for a letter of, in support of Plan NH.
Do you all want to view a draft of the letter before Andy signs it, or Andy's
I
free to
think it's
sign
gonna
it
be very
whenever?
similar to planning, right?
Yeah, it
Shouldn't,
should be short and simple,
yeah, I think I'm fine with it, as long as,
right at the kiss level. Keep it simple.
exactly.
All right. We have motion and second. Any further discussion? I'm an aye. Bob?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
John?
Aye, thank you all.
Daphne was our next item on. Daphne's unable to make it tonight, so
I have an update from Daphne. The 2020 tax deed that was eligible for lien has been paid, and so that property, those two properties are no longer eligible for deed until May.
So we're good?
So we're good. So you can not respond to my email about an inspection.
Oh, okay, thanks, appreciate it.
good news.
That's great for me. It's one less thing I have to do as a health officer, so perfect.
Russ, do you have anything to talk about?
See, communications, not meeting in December, communications. Talked about it, no.
And zoning approved all our budgets last night?
Oh, right, the budget committee, yes,
Yeah, sorry, budget committee.
yes.
Concom still has some things that they're working forward as far as interest for conserving, but I can't disclose what they are right now at this point, so still premature.
Jen?
I don't have anything else. No.
John?
Planning board, there was, another, development approved, on 125, for residential, and 13 units, between middle and south on the west side of 125.
So that's the
Magnuson.
Magnuson's old lot?
Yes.
Is it a cluster, or how's the driveway permitting gonna be on that?
There was access, and I think there's already a driveway there.
Is
There,
it a
there's
shared
a
driveway?
there's a driveway there, but they're gonna have to make sure that they, the applicant's gonna have to deal with, DOT for that.
State permitted.
Makes me
Create a road, right? So
Still
they'll-
makes me twitch over that South Road intersection, and now you throw in the development and trucks going in and out.
Yeah, look, the planning board actually, Kristen Aldred, she doesn't, I can't really see the audience, but she's not there, is she, by any chance?
No.
Yeah.
So she's actually put forward, some interesting information specific to New Hampshire on how we may be able to influence the DOT, and she's referring specifically to the speed limit on 125, and how we may be able to have some influence outside of the 10-year plan in that regard. I will share that around. I'll share that with Karen. She can share it around with the board. But I think that it would be maybe after budget season something really helpful to raise with the and get his insights on.
Yeah, because that just means more during construction. There's going to be so many vehicles coming in and out of there, and then even afterwards, you're going to have I got 13 new homes that are going within that short space.
Yeah.
But I
It
think
makes me really nervous.
that intersection's gonna put more weight on Middle Road than South Road, just, it's so close there. The problem is gonna be Crowley Falls Extension, because it's gonna be kinda,
Right there.
Oh, that's right.
kinda like
For
this,
sure.
I don't know if you can see me, John, but,
Crap, I didn't even think of that.
you know, 13 houses, I don't know what the traffic count's gonna be on that.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
I don't have anything. I'll open the floor to public comment one at a time with a hand raise. Michelle?
Michelle Student, that's S-I-U-D-U-T, please. I have actually two comments, but I'll say my thing. So the letter of support for Plan Net NH, was the Conservation Commission queried on that, on their support for that? Seems like something that they.
I haven't seen it, the conservation.
I
No.
haven't seen anything there either.
Seems like that should be something they would be asked about. If nobody else has any questions, I'll ask my other two.
That was a short one. Go ahead, I'll give you another one.
More of a comment than anything. On this agenda tonight, the Communications Subcommittee, which has been in existence since June, only tonight had their mission statement approved. And I just find it odd that the Energy Subcommittee, which has only had 2 meetings, is suddenly pushing through a contract that is many pages long. And my last question, I guess, would be regarding not being able to discuss the MOU because we have 2 people remote. That doesn't seem to be a problem any other time. There's one selectman, I think he's probably remote more than he's in person, so it just is curious to me why tonight is different. That's all.
Thank you.
I'm curious about what the recreation manifest is. Maybe
Okay.
I missed it at other meetings, but
Becky
I have no
Dunham.
idea.
Becky, can you just
Oh,
name
I'm
it?
sorry. We have it down on Block Drive.
So the recreation manifest is checks withdrawn from the recreation revolving accounts.
Okay.
So it usually is like reimbursements to renters or fees for
Oh, okay.
sporting, like if we have to rent a gym or something like that. So even though rec has their own revolving account, the selectmen still approve the
Yeah.
expenditures from that account.
Okay. And then the corollary question to that, it's still Becky Dunham, Block Drive, is the Plan New Hampshire. I agree with Michelle, the Conservation Commission hasn't been informed about this, and I've been to every meeting for a number of months, and I'm an alternate. It would be interesting to know what the plan is for a charrette with Plan New Hampshire.
My understanding is the charrette has to do with recreation,
Yes,
not,
yes, but it involves landscaping, involves community things, and conservation is very much a part of that. It helps design a community to be accessible and workable for the entire community. And I think that's important for conservation to be part of that.
thank you. Liz?
Liz Faria, South Road. To follow up on Becky's, I don't know how the Economic Development Committee got hooked with the recreation. Like, it seems like that's not bringing new development to the town. Like, when did they get sort of joined at the hip? I thought they were bringing new developments to Brentwood, not sprucing up the rec center. I thought the rec department did that.
They're looking at ways to improve the desirability of Brentwood for businesses. And obviously, I guess recreation is one of those that will help bring businesses to Brentwood. John, is that correct? I don't want to speak out of turn.
No, that's accurate, and there are actually studies that that demonstrate that.
Me,
Yes, please.
Tracy Dakota, Middle Road. I'd like to know when I can present the Brentwood newsletter budget.
So we're gonna, Jen, are you gonna be here next week?
I would assume so, yes.
We'll discuss the MOU and then, my mistake, Karen lumped all the MOU and the budget into one item. So you were on the agenda to discuss the budget tonight after the discussion of whatever the MOU was. So I apologize for that. When we discussed earlier, it was kind of lumped together instead of subsections. So we will put you on for next week. There was a question behind you first, Lois.
Mr. Chair, I'm Jim Azure, Mohawk Lane. I was one of the biggest supporters here for the Energy Subcommittee. I think the Vice Chair actually commented to me that what I said and spoke of was like, could be the, I think she said could be the theme of the whole meeting, But I'm just concerned tonight, and I'm disappointed the Chair left, because I would have liked to, said it to him, but like he gets up to give us, I was here to hear what he had to say, and he basically said almost nothing, and the Vice Chair of the Select Board, I feel, did more speaking than he did, and honestly, like, I thought the whole point of this was it's a complicated issue, and we had this committee set up to look at this complicated issue, and now it's like a couple of weeks later, and boom, we're voting, so yes. So, and I was gonna ask if it was that obvious, and it was that easy to, in that short of a time to come up with it, why did the Select Board even have to set up a whole committee? Why didn't they just do it themselves? And if it was that simple, was it a unanimous vote? Like, did they just open this thing up in a couple of meetings, go, wow, this is no-brainer, boom, let's vote on it? It just seems weird to me, and maybe I'm the only one, that it went this fast. I don't know what the rush is. This came up at the last meeting. And it also seems really odd that the Select Board Vice Chair spoke, in my opinion, more than the guy who's the chairperson of the whole committee. And he was the one that I thought we had kind of assigned from our town to really look into this. Anyways, thank you.
Yeah. And I haven't reviewed the minutes, but the minutes of that board are public information, so. And I'm not sure when the next time is, if maybe you want to drop them a line and ask them, that question
Yeah,
directly.
I just wish you said, thanks, Andy.
Lois?
Lois DeYoung, Crowley Falls Road. Question, what is MOU?
Memorandum of Understanding.
I know what the letters stand for. What is it? Why is it, if we have nothing, is anyone aware of what it is? Don't we have somebody, don't we supposed to know at least what it is?
So-
I'm the best newsletter people knowing, does anybody know what this is besides you?
I don't know what it is. I know what the letters stand for, but we haven't had a public discussion. A member of the board asked for it to be on the agenda to discuss, maybe,
Which member of the board?
I believe it was,
Jennifer Jones?
yes. So, I know last time we did this in April, Russ and I had talked with the newsletter, and a memorandum of understanding was kind of talked about and never happened. So I would assume it's bringing that conversation back up. But like I said, we haven't met to discuss it, so I don't know what the thought is.
And then I also followed up and had a meeting with them too about the memo of understanding, but then I thought it went to a public vote, and it was voted to be put in there. I didn't think that was even on the table, because I thought it was a warrant article to put it back into the general, and that people wanted it, so that's what I thought, maybe, that was up for discussion.
Buddy?
Lenny Bedard, Middle Rose, speaking as a private citizen, not as an
Oh, well,
Just so I understand, anything that is in the general budget is not a guarantee. The taxpayers at the town meeting vote on the bottom line number, but any of the lines can be whatever the select board wants them to be.
Correct. The only thing we cannot do is if a warrant article fails, we cannot appropriate the money from somewhere else to fund that warrant article.
So if the taxpayers, or so if we voted to put it back into the budget, that doesn't guarantee that they will be getting money this year.
Correct. But it doesn't say it's not.
No, but like if it had stayed a warrant article, then that money would have been earmarked for that and only that. Thank you.
And the warrant articles are only from year to year unless it's a special, non-lapsing, is that the right term?
Yes.
Gentleman in the back, Bob?
So Nick Brighton, Middle Road. I understand the minutes that dealt with the consent agenda now.
Yes.
What is the mechanism for correcting the minutes? What can the public do or a member of the board that's misquoted? What is the mechanism for doing that?
So if there's a public question, you would address it to Karen. If the members of the board have a question, we would ask for it to come out of the consent agenda and discuss amending them.
So I did actually request in an email on November the 1st that the minutes from the previous week be amended. Can I tell you what that it would be? So the trustees of the trust funds were attributed to providing the COLA, the increase figures. That's not actually true. And I did email it to Karen, and I think you were CC'd on the email. The actual number came from Three Barings fiduciary advisors who work for the trustees of the trust funds. And we weren't aware of that communication going back and forth at that time, so I'd like that to be changed, please.
Okay. I was always under the impression that the trustees gave us that from
No, I believe
their
the
financial
communication-
advisors, but
That came directly from Three Barings, not through us. So I'd just like the record to be corrected for posterity. Thank you.
can you look back at that, Karen?
Those minutes?
That, where that number actually came from, did it come
So
from
the
the
minutes
trustees?
the COLA letter does come from Three Bearings. Historically, it would be the chairperson of the trustees of the trust funds that would ask David Mays to send that to us. And then over time, because I get CC'd on everything from Diane, I just started reaching out to them directly. But if you would like me to put Julie back in the middle, I'm certainly happy to do that.
No, I think that's the correct thing to do. Thank you.
Motion to reopen it and fix it, or?
Yeah,
I'll make a motion to reopen it and fix it. That's from the November 1st,
So the actual minutes are the October 25th.
October 25th meeting minutes?
So we would just be replacing trustee of the trust funds with Three Bearings.
Correct.
yes.
Thank you.
Do I have a second to amend those minutes?
Second.
Replacing trustee of the trust fund with what word? I'm sorry, I just,
The corporation that actually sent the letter.
Three Barings?
Three Bearings.
okay.
Do I have a motion and a second? I'm an aye. Bob?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
So amended.
Thank you.
Jim Burlow, Gravel Road. Did I just hear tonight that the select board authorized $3,000, rec department authorized $3,000, the planning board authorized $3,000, plus an extra $1,500 to contract Plan New Hampshire to help the town?
Sort of. What the select board voted on tonight was to support the planned New Hampshire project, which enables them to come up with a contract to find out what the exact cost is. The select board did not appropriate any money tonight. The recreation department has pledged support for $3,000, and the planning board has pledged support for $3,000.
So Plan New Hampshire will be advising the select board on what it is going to do?
I think what they're gonna do, plannewhampshire.org, and Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what they're gonna do is put on a meeting, charrette, and there's a cost associated with putting that meeting on. And the planning board and the rec and the economic development, right? Those are the ones
Yes.
that are committing. Now, the total cost is projected at $7,500, but there's a buffer of $1,500 that's in there. So
Correct.
if they spend $7,500, but there's put forward an effort to do up to 9,000 because there's variables that we don't know about, then that means that it would actually only cost $2,500 per to get to the 7,500, not to the 9,000. But Plan New Hampshire still has to come up with what the costs are, get the contracts over. It has to be reviewed by those entities, those groups, the Planning Board, Rec, and Economic, and then it would come back before us.
Yeah, so Jim, just to clarify a couple of, so the fixed cost from Plan NH is actually $6,000. That's the fixed cost to run the charrette over a weekend. So it's specific. They run them specifically on weekends. Then they bring in architects and engineers who are New Hampshire based to our town for that weekend, and that variable cost component that we were discussing, we are responsible as a part of the agreement. We would be responsible for lodging and food for the folks who are not, quote, local. So the anticipated cost would be $1,500 or less for that variable cost. But we have that extra buffer. So any remaining funds will be split evenly between the three committees: Rec, Economic Development, and Planning Board.
Yes, Jim?
One final question, Jim Burlow, Gravel Road. Who was the select board member that contacted Plan New Hampshire on behalf of the town of Brentwood?
I believe it was the Economic Development Committee, correct?
Yeah, so I have been in contact with Plan New Hampshire, but the primary contact from the Economic Development Committee is Bob Rossman from the Economic Development Committee.
There was a hand in the back on the left that I couldn't see who it is because Lois is in the way.
Alvin Wright from Middleborough. So we heard this evening that the Cooperative Power Collective will be having a public meeting on December 7th. Do we know where and when that is?
Should be here, right?
They generally meet in that, the Sanborn room at 7.
Sanborn Room at 7?
I haven't confirmed the time. I'll have to wait until I get the actual agenda in case they've.
Just to
made any
clarify, that's not intended to be a public meeting. We are required to have public hearings about this. That is going to be a presentation to the Energy Committee by CPCNH, but anybody is welcome to attend if they want to listen.
Yes, and excuse me, Becky Dunn on Brentwood Drive. I just spoke to Rick when he left the room. We're going to put that out as a newsletter item because I think it's important for the public to hear that presentation. And he agreed. I'm going to draft something for him to write.
Thank you. Robin, did that answer your question?
Yes,
Did you have a
thank you.
follow-up? Liz?
Yeah, so I have a problem with this term charrette. It's a French word, means cart, and is often used to describe the final intense work ethic extended by art and architecture students to meet a project deadline. That's one method, which doesn't seem to make sense to me, that's why we're doing it. Another way is, a charrette is a type of participatory planning process that assembles an interdisciplinary team, typically consisting of planners, citizens, city officials, architects, landscape architects, transportation engineers, parks and recreation officials, and other stakeholders to create a design and implementation plan for urban regeneration. I don't get why we're doing this and paying people to come in to this little town to do that. I don't get it, and I go back to when we first set up the Economic Development Committee, which was, we were told numerous times that would cost us nothing, and now there's $5,000 for that master planning survey, and there's another $7,500 to $9,000 for this. I think John lives in the wrong town. He should live next. We're too little. This is ridiculous.
Michelle?
Michelle Stewart, Meadow Road. 3 or 4 weeks ago, the Brentwood newsletter was told that tonight would be the night they would present their budget. And I just find it very disingenuous that yesterday, without any communication beforehand, we see on the agenda that there's an MOU to be discussed when no one from your board has come to us prior to this.
So I don't know if there's a question there, but my response to that is, we need to discuss it before we discuss it with anybody else. So you have to give us the benefit of the board for us to figure out what the hell's going on before we bring anybody else in to complicate the matters. And in the process of being open and transparent, as you asked, it was on the agenda, like, what is being discussed? So we weren't ready for the newsletter to join the conversation yet.
Right, but I guess my point is initially we thought this would be the night that we were gonna discuss our budget. We didn't even know that you were considering some sort of MOU or anything. So it's-
Neither did I, until, like, it's a public meeting and we have to all discuss things at the same time, so we meet once a week.
Seems like a strategic agenda by some certain people on this board.
Sorry you feel that way. Robin?
Robin Wrighton, Middle Road. Just like to note that all of the Brentwood board is here this evening to participate in this conversation. We were here, we were prepared. We're workers. It's tough enough to, find time to do this at your leisure. There's 5 of us. And 5 of us had to make changes to our plans to be here together. And we're here.
And I thank you. And I also want to make note that we tried to reach out and contact you earlier in the day when
I had to work.
I made the decision to table the discussion.
I just, be more respectful of people's time.
I understand. When I got the information, I made the decision. So if I had the information 2 days ago, I would have made the decision 2 days ago, but I also have, to do what I'm working with.
I thank you, Andy.
You're welcome. I'm trying.
I know.
All right. Mr. Reagan, did you have another question?
One final comment about remote working and attending meetings remotely. I'm a little confused about attending the selectmen meeting, sort of the board of selectmen meeting, whatever it's called, the meeting remotely. It seems that in this case, two people choose not to attend it, and so important business has to be tabled because they have to be here in person to do that. Isn't that saying that doing stuff remotely in this case, isn't that efficient?
There was also a department head that wanted to discuss it that cannot attend due to an illness, and there is no means for somebody of the general public to attend remotely.
That's not something I knew, but I'll take that in consideration. Thank you.
Back after the emergency orders eliminated the Zoom meetings, we now don't have a means for the general public to attend a meeting remotely. So. Yes, Lois. And then we're gonna wrap this up. It's Thanksgiving week. Everybody wants to go home.
Posty on Rolling Falls Road. And I looked at your rules, and I know that selectmen, if you're excused for their attendance, that's okay. But in the case of John Morgan, he is absent more than he's present. And I think you need to look at that, because how can he be effective when this is not the first time you had to cancel. You had to cancel the whole meeting because you couldn't get a quorum a couple of weeks back. Your board is not effective, because you're having a working board every week, which is what you're supposed to have.
I see no more hands. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Wait,
Oh,
But wait, there's more.
but
do
wait.
you want to do this or no?
Oh, yeah. So there's a request to go into non-public for personnel matters, i.e. the personnel.
This will be more than
Yeah,
2
we're
minutes,
just-
I promise.
I'm not gonna go into IE. I'll make a motion to go non-public for personnel.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? I'm an aye. Bob? Russ? Aye.
Can you contact me and tell me everybody who's going to be
Jen?
involved in the discussion
Aye.
for this MOU?
And John?
Aye.
It'll just be the board.
Hey, John,
No,
Thanks,
there's a
Doug.
department head too.
didn't contribute at all.
So-
Come together, we need
Get it
those
all
budgets.
together. Tell me all.
too. All right, yeah. I'm on it.
Appreciate it.
Good night, I'll see you tomorrow. Everyone said all in favor, yes. So we'll overcome by 7:55.
I agree. Yep.
7:54. When is that St. Louis something? I feel so bad.
understand how it works.
You know, the energy committee,
That's not on the agenda.
energy committee.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to end
I
the,
attended the first meeting and Jen attended the second
I
one.
get it, that's how.